What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's some early thoughts ahead of Game Week 32. So I'm going to go through why are all premium midfielders just rubbish at the moment, some notes from the weekend, Savinho who was benched, and then take a quick look at my own team transfer plans and all that good stuff for Game Week 32. Let's get into it. So let's start with Mo Salah. It was his second blank in a row for FPL, and it's now 7 games without a non-penalty goal. He did score against Southampton twice, but they were both penalties. I have seen some people start to discuss whether it might be time to get rid of him. And I'm sure it's just social media chat. And obviously he is a lot of money. And the last couple of weeks he hasn't performed at that price tag. But the reality is, where do you need to spend the money? Like Cole Palmer's just been benched. Saka's just been benched. We're going to talk about them in a minute. Haaland's not fit. Trent's injured. Gabriel's injured. There's nowhere to spend our money. And at a time when there's a double game week this week, there's a double game week in 33, a blank in 34, possible doubles in 36, possible blanks in 37, transfers are so precious. Like, why would you even entertain selling Salah? For most people, he's not going to be captain this week anyway. It's probably going to be Isak if he's fit. Game week 33, we've got double. Salah doesn't have a double. It's Leicester away. So most people probably aren't going to captain him either. So yes, you could argue that for that amount of money, you need a captainable player. But that will happen again in Game Week 34. Possibly not for 35 against Chelsea away and 36 against Arsenal at home. But I just think the idea of selling Salah, we shouldn't even be entertaining it. I probably shouldn't even be starting this video by talking about it because I can't see how people are realistically thinking about this. Off the top of my head, without going to check the FPL page right now, and I'm recording this straight after the Man City-Man United game, I can't even think of many midfielders that have done well this week that I'd even want to own. So we just have to relax. It's not great the last couple of games, but ultimately he's got the fixtures over the next 3 to do well, and there's nowhere to spend the money anyway, so just hold on to him and use a transfer for something more important. So Bukayo Saka was benched for the second game in a row following his return from a hamstring issue. Not ideal if you just picked him up in Game Week 31. He came off the bench for a 1-pointer. Not ideal if you got him in Game Week 30 either, but at least that week you got an 8-pointer off the bench. The big question that everyone's going to have this week, will he start against Brentford at home in Game Week 32? The honest answer, at least at the time of recording, I have absolutely no idea. Like, genuinely, in Game Week 30, I thought it was more likely that he would be benched than he would start, and that was correct. In 31, I thought he would start, and he didn't. I'm not quite sure what to make of it right now. It's clear that he's being managed because he's not been out with an injury that long before, but also they have those Real Madrid games in the Champions League. So presumably he's going to start the first leg. And if he starts the first leg, will they give him the Brentford game off to then start the second leg as well? Probably. It seems really unlikely that Arsenal are going to have a massive lead from the first leg that allows them to bench Saka for the second leg. And the Premier League for Arsenal is pretty much over. I know Arteta's not going to come out and say that, but they're not going to win the league. And it's very unlikely they're going to drop out of Champions League places. So the Champions League is really the big push for Arsenal right now. So I think there is a chance that he's benched against Brentford. But I think for FPL purposes, it doesn't matter. If you don't own Saka, putting him off until Game Week 33 is probably the right call. Because before Game Week 33, you've got Real Madrid, Brentford, Real Madrid. So you can see whether he can get all those games and remain fit. And then see ahead of Ipswich away. Because if they get knocked out by Real Madrid, then it is just Premier League they've got to focus on. So for anyone that doesn't own him, you shouldn't probably be buying right now. And if you do have him, you're not selling. Because who are you going to? You've got Brentford at home and a double game week to come. It's just not going to happen. It's obviously frustrating if you're thinking about bench boosting this week. Because Saka could get benched and then come on for another 1-point cameo. But I just think you've got to accept that that can happen. Nobody should be spending a transfer to get rid of Saka. So as annoying as it is, and as hard as it is to predict, don't captain, don't sell, don't buy. I think it's pretty straightforward for FPL. So basically, all our premium midfielders are just rubbish at the moment and terrible value. Cole Palmer at 10.7 million. How many times have you heard people like me say he's absolutely nailed on in the Premier League? Well, apparently not. He gets benched against Brentford in Game Week 31. Massively frustrating as an owner. As someone that started with him on Wildcard 30, when I saw that Saka benching against Everton, I was delighted, I won't lie. And then it was all for nothing because Palmer goes and gets benched and he gets a 1-point cameo as well. Perhaps it's because he's just back from injury. If you remember, he missed Game Week 29, played against Spurs, and I guess there's a quick-ish turnaround to the Brentford game. Possibly that's the reason why. Maybe he's being saved for Europe. But it seems like a bit of a weird decision because Chelsea don't have Champions League secure for next year, and a draw against Brentford isn't really good enough. They've got a really bad record away from home at the moment. Benching your best player doesn't seem to make all that much sense to me unless he's carrying a bit of a knock or unless Maresca is just prioritising Europe. For me, this is pretty much the same situation as Saka. You're not buying Palmer right now, and I also don't think you're selling. Because if you're selling Palmer, it's probably for Saka, and there's no guarantee that Saka will start in game week 32 either. So I feel like you might as well give Palmer the Ipswich game, hope that he starts, and whether he does or doesn't, you can sell him in game week 33. So it's hugely frustrating. Like, he's such a differential right now. For engaged managers, he's around 40% ownership, even in like the top 100k and stuff like that. And so his points are worth massive amounts right now compared to what they usually would be, especially at the start of the season. But you just don't know if he's going to play. But I feel like you just don't buy, don't sell. Because who else are you even going to? If you're not buying Saka, I don't know which other midfielders you might want to look at right now. Like, if I just quickly go to the midfielder list and just run through the lack of options there feels like there are right now. So Salah obviously at the top, then Mbeumo, who's just blank. I mean, Mbeumo is a solid pick, but it's Arsenal away next game. No one's going to be rushing to sell Palmer before Ipswich are home for Mbeumo. Bruno Fernandes is fine as a pick, but I don't think I'd be looking to bring him in right now. To be fair, from 33 onwards, the Man United fixtures are quite good. The Newcastle away is nothing special in 32. But beyond that, Bruno Fernandes maybe you could look at. Luis Diaz, benched against Fulham. No guarantee he starts match to match. He'll start the majority, but not all of them. No need to bring him in. Liverpool don't have doubles. Kluivert's injured. Bowen's just scored. Bowen maybe not a terrible option, like from 33 onwards. This week it's Liverpool away. You kind of get the point where I could keep going. Rodgers is not a bad pick, and he started every game, but there was so much rotation for Aston Villa in game week 31. Could Rodgers finally get his rest against Southampton? Possibly. I think for Rodgers, you probably just want to pick him up in game week 33. Iwobi is fine, but his minutes aren't completely secure. Elanga only played 45 minutes, yellow flagged. Maddison, you don't know if he's going to start game to game. I don't think now is the right time to go for Spurs players. It's just a weird situation in FPL right now where a lot of people are probably looking at their teams thinking, I'm not really a massive fan of a lot of those players. Have I made mistakes on wildcard? There's not really a huge amount of other players to go and pick up. So as boring as it is, and as much as I basically repeated myself for Salah, Saka and now Palmer, you're probably keeping him and you're probably also not buying. So surprise, surprise, guess what happened in game week 31? A Man City attacker was benched. How many times have we seen this before under Pep Guardiola? A player like Savinho gets a run in the team, people put him into their FPL squads, and then he gets benched. It's happened before so many times I've lost count. And this is not me trying to rub it in and say that he was a bad pick, because I don't think that's the case. I almost had him on wildcard 30, and actually me wanting him in my squad soon has inadvertently cost me 7 points this week. Because to get him in game week 33 with my other planned transfers, I only had about 0.3 million spare, and with Saka going up on Friday night as well as Saliba and Gabriel going down, I felt like I had to do the Gabriel to Saliba move, which I did. I then played Saliba, who conceded to Everton, and benched Vardiol, who got a 9-pointer, at least at the time of recording, he's on 9 points with bonus, against Man United. So I benched him, whereas I could have just played him. And the annoying thing is, just to go off on a little tangent here, as soon as I made that move, I thought at some point Savinho will probably get benched before 33. I won't want to buy him, so I'll go for Rodgers instead. And then the money gained from doing the Gabriel to Saliba switch just wouldn't matter. And that's exactly what's happened. I know myself so well, and yet I just do the moves anyway. Anyway, who cares about my team? If you've got Savinho, the reality is you're probably keeping. Because to use a transfer to remove a player that's got a double game week just doesn't feel great right now. And also, and maybe this is a little bit of copium for people that have got Savinho, maybe it was just a bit of a rest because he's played so much recently. Also, the way that Man City set up against Man United was quite narrow. It didn't really have much width for most of the game, probably because Man United play with wing-backs. So unless Man United cause you massive problems with those wing-backs, you're probably fine playing so centrally, and that's kind of what Man City did. And Man United didn't really have too much of an effect from wide positions anyway. So maybe that's why Savinho didn't play. Maybe I'm talking absolute rubbish. but I think there's probably a good chance that he will start against Palace at home in game week 32. Can I guarantee that he's going to start all 3 of the next 3 games for game weeks 32 and 33? Of course not. But I could never guarantee that anyway. And also, it's a very similar conversation to that of Cole Palmer. Even if you're selling him, realistically, where are you going to for that kind of price? Like, I know people are suddenly worried that they've got Salah instead of Eze, and Eze's a good pick, but let's not pretend that Salah is all of a sudden terrible. Rodgers, I don't mind the sideways move, but I don't think I'd want to buy him until after the Southampton game, which sounds crazy because Southampton is the money fixture. But in between the 2 PSG games in the Champions League, even Rodgers could get benched. And I'm just not sure it's worth taking the risk. I'd rather save the transfer and give Savinho one more match. And I've already been through a bunch of these cheap players, like Gibbs White at 6.6. He's not a terrible pick, but I just can't see why you'd use a transfer to move to him. Like Matoma, Leicester at home in game week 32, not bad, but no double game weeks on the horizon. And obviously, if Savinho's got a double and he misses a game, that's only a single game week. I get that. But if you've already got Savinho in your team, I just don't see the point in taking him out. I think the theme for me in game week 32 is to not react too badly to what has been a pretty poor game week for most people. So I think I would just hold Savinho and let him play against Palace at home. Even if you're on bench boost this week, I would probably give him a chance and just look at those 7 games in a row that he started and just hope that moving forward that's a good sign for minutes. Also, it's worth noting that Foden did go off quite early before the 60th minute against Man United, and it looked like he was limping a little bit. It didn't look like anything major, and I'm sure he'll be fine. But if he is not available, that obviously puts the minutes of other attackers up. Savinho still didn't come on, but going forward, I think he'll probably be okay. Would I buy Savinho right now? Probably not ahead of Morgan Rodgers. Even though I think there's a chance Rodgers gets benched against Southampton, I can't guarantee it. And I think after that match, if PSG knock Villa out, Rodgers will continue to start. He's so important to that team. And Villa are also chasing down Champions League spots. So, yeah, I'm probably going to make a midfielder move in game week 33 to get rid of Murphy after the double for Newcastle. And I'm going to bring in Savinho and Rodgers. Right now, I just don't see me going for the Man City player. The one thing that's keeping me interested, and the reason that I'm not writing it off completely, is the Man City fixtures are good after game week 34. And if you're on free hit 34, you basically got Palace at home, double of Everton away, Villa at home. Doesn't matter about 34 because you're free hitting. Then it's Wolves at home, Southampton away, Bournemouth at home. But if he's not going to start all those matches, does it matter so much? I don't know. I still think at 6.2 is good value. I wouldn't panic. If you've got him, just keep him. If you don't, maybe delay your decision until the double in 33 if you can. So let's just go through some quick notes from the weekend. So as I just mentioned, Foden did start against Man United, which is a positive for anyone that put him in on their wildcards recently, or perhaps even if you just transferred him in. But he did get subbed before the 60th minute for a 1-pointer, and it did look like he was limping a little bit as he went off. Now, hopefully it's not a massive injury. I think he took a bit of a knock in the first half, and maybe it was just a carry-on from that. So I don't see it as a major problem. I know people are already frustrated with him because obviously he didn't start in 30. Now he's gone off before the 60th minute. But again, and I know this is like quite repetitive in this video, I think you probably hold on to him for now and just see what happens in game week 32. I just wouldn't make any major decisions before the double because you want to give yourself a chance to have these players play. Like if in 32 players go and get injured, which means Foden's almost certainly going to start, all of a sudden he looks like a really good pick. Would not be buying him right now. And I don't think he's particularly great value. But if you're someone that's got high team value and he's already in your squad, I think you can just keep hold of him. Because a lot of the players you might want to buy just don't have great fixtures this week. The only people that should maybe be thinking about selling a Foden is if it's your only way to get to like a Salah or an Eze for a triple up on Palace before back-to-back doubles. I don't think many people are in that position. Kluivert wasn't in the squad again for Bournemouth. From what Iraola said in the press conference on Friday, it didn't seem like a major issue. So if you've got him, I wouldn't be eager to transfer him out because he could be back for 32. But it is becoming somewhat of an issue if you've got him because it was like, I will keep him for 30 because he'll probably be back for 31. Keep him for 31 because he'll probably be back for 32. The good news this week is you've got a longer gap between games. Obviously, 30 to 31 was a little bit of a quicker turnaround. Games aren't until next weekend, so hopefully he'll be okay. João Pedro, another player that was benched. I am surprised by that. I think with the injuries Brighton have got right now, I expected him to play. Maybe, again, it was quick turnaround. But that's another player I just don't think I could buy right now. I think if you want to go cheap, you could maybe look at someone like Evan Nielsen that's got 3 goals last 2 game weeks, or even perhaps Strand Larsen, 4 goals in 3, someone else I've got on my weekend notes. Now, I don't think anyone needs to rush out and buy Strand Larsen, and obviously Cunha will be back from suspension for game week 32. He's probably the Wolves player to look at, but for 5.4 million, Strand Larsen's got Spurs at home, Man United away, Leicester at home next 3. That ain't a bad run. After that, it's Man City away, which is a bit tougher. Final 3 games of the season, Brighton at home, Palace away, Brentford at home. So if you're in need of a really cheap forward and you don't want to go for Evan Nielsen for whatever reason, Strand Larsen maybe. And by the way, I am not saying that anyone should be selling Marmoush, Mateta, Isak, the popular front line, but there might be some people out there that really need a cheap forward, don't want to go for Evan Nielsen, maybe take a look at Strand Larsen. For Aston Villa, Watkins start, Rashford bench, Asensio start. I think Rashford and Asensio are both really interesting FPL picks in midfield, but unfortunately you cannot guarantee when they're going to start, and eventually the returns off the bench just won't continue. Like Rashford blanked obviously in this game. So I just don't think I'd be looking to go for either of them. Again, it's very boring, but I think Rodgers is just the obvious pick there, and sometimes going for the obvious move is the one to take. Watkins, it's very encouraging that he started. I think with him, I've got a keen eye on bringing him into my team for 33, but I think now is the time to just sit back, relax, and wait and see what happens. Champions League game, Southampton game, then Champions League again. If Watkins is benched against PSG, that would make me really concerned for his minutes going forward. Maybe Rashford is a proper competitive player for him in that number 9 spot. But if Watkins starts both the PSG games, that kind of gives a good indication that he's still the clear first choice number 9. And then from 33 onwards, especially if Villa get knocked out, which is obviously possible, then Watkins will be someone to consider for the double and the rest of the season. Cucurella bench like Palm, there was lots of rotation. Could happen again in game week 32. If you don't own him, don't buy. If you've got him, you probably keep hold of him. And then Nketiah got a red card, 2 yellows. That means Mateta's minutes, who has been subbed off early in the last 2 games, should go up for the first game of double game week 32. And I still think Mateta is an okay buy right now. If you don't already own him and you've got a spare Palace slot. And obviously, if you do own him, you ain't selling him. So I'm just going to quickly talk about my own team, early thoughts on transfer plans for game week 32. I'll talk about my points and rank in the team selection video on Thursday once all the matches for game week 31 have finished. As it stands on Sunday, I'm currently on a small green arrow, and I've got Livramento, Murphy and Isak captains still to play against Leicester. So the green arrow should stand. It's just about how big the gain is. So I'll have to wait and see. It would have been an even bigger green arrow had I not bought Saliba, but look, it is what it is. I can't complain with how this week is going so far. Game week 32, very simple for me. I'm rolling unless I get an injury, and I'm playing my bench boost. My current bench is Martinez against Southampton away, Evan Nielsen against Fulham at home, Vardio against Palace at home, and Nico Williams against Everton at home. I think that looks pretty strong. Some people will point out correctly that Martinez has a double in 33, so why am I not bench boosting that week? I just think overall my bench is better this week. Nico Williams has got Spurs away in game week 33. Evan Nielsen has got Palace away. Vardio will have a double, but that just means a different single game week player goes on the bench, like Livramento or Murphy against Villa away. So ultimately, my 32 bench probably looks as good, if not better than 33, and it means there's less things that can go wrong. So I think that bench is actually okay. You could argue that if Palmer's going to get benched again, Evan Nielsen should go in the 11 and Palmer is on the bench, but I would be hoping that Palmer will start. Likewise, you could argue that Saliba should be on the bench and Vardio should be in the 11. But I think, and I like to try and have a realistic bench for bench boost, if I didn't have my bench boost in 32, I'm pretty confident I would play the double up on Arsenal against Brentford. Because Vardio's got Palace at home, which is fine, but I've got 2 Palace attackers. So I think that's a realistic bench for this week. The rest of the team, Raya, Saliba double up for Arsenal, Munoz double game week, Livramento double, Salah against West Ham at home, Palmer against Ipswich at home, then double game weeks for all of Eze, Jacob Murphy, Sarr and Isak, and he will be my captain, and then Marmoush against Palace at home. So 6 double game week players, 5 single game weekers. Everyone's going to be on Isak captain this week if he's fully fit and available. I understand that, but I think you've got to pick your battles about when to go different. So game week 30, I went for Marmoush instead of Salah. Game week 31, I went for Isak instead of Salah. This week, it's not the week to fight against Isak. I think he is clearly the best captain. You could go for a Mateta, an Eze, or like a Sarr. But it's Man City away, Newcastle away. It's not a great double game week. It's better to have the 2 home games against United and Palace. So Isak will definitely be my captain. And otherwise, I'm just really waiting for 33 to make any major moves. Because as I've discussed throughout this video, there's not really any other players that I want this week that are guaranteed starters. Like if you told me right now Palmer's going to get benched against Ipswich and Saka's going to start, I'd probably make the move because that's my plan moving 33. But nobody can guarantee that. So unless I pick up any injuries midweek through, training, which we hear about in the press conference or in European matches, I just don't think I need any transfers. And I'm kind of happy about that. I'll make my moves in 33. I'll have 2 free transfers. I'll probably be looking to do Isak to Watkins if I think Watkins is back to being first choice and going to regularly play ahead of Rashford. Palmer to Saka is so obvious, I'm definitely going to do it. And then it's just about Jacob Murphy to Rodgers or Savinho. I'll probably go Rodgers because I'm just that type of manager and I'll probably take the minutes. But let's see. So yeah, 32 fairly straightforward. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button as well. I'll be back soon for transfer tips. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you again soon.